This is the Yozma IN10 Pro, an electric dirt bike with a 2500 watt motor, top speed of around 50 miles per hour, and a price tag of just $18.99 US at the time of publication. I need to point out right away that this is going to be a deviation from my normal reviews, which focus on electric bikes. And in the eyes of the law, this is an electric motorcycle, which means it's only allowed to be used on private land and ridden off-road. Riding it on public roadways and trails requires a license, insurance, and registration. With that covered, let's put the IN10 Pro to the test. The Yozma IN10 Pro and its battery arrive in separate boxes. So don't freak out if they don't arrive together. Mine arrived well packaged, including a front light, foot pegs, a sling bag, and fenders. The assembly was more complicated than a regular e-bike. You install the front wheel, fender, handlebar, pegs, and the rear shock. Thankfully, the manual walks you through it clearly. The Yozma IN10 Pro is built on a steel one-size-fits-all frame, with a total payload capacity of 330 pounds. Yozma says it weighs 143 pounds and fits riders from 4'7" to 6'3". The IN10 Pro has a 17-inch front wheel and a 14-inch rear, and they wear real dirt bike knobbies. The suspension includes the inverted hydraulic front fork, which has no adjustments, and then you've got a nitrogen shock in the back with a preload adjustment. Power comes from your standard mid-mounted brushless motor, which is driving a chain, and it's got an 11-tooth front sprocket and a massive rear 60-tooth plate. Depending where you're looking on the Yozma website, this bike has a top-rated peak power of 4,500 watts or 5,500 watts. So I reached out for clarification, and they did confirm that the bike has a nominal output of 2,500 watts and a peak output of 5,500 watts. And you can also further tune the motor output using the Far Driver Controller's optional Bluetooth dongle that you can purchase separately from the bike. The 60-volt 27 amp hour or 1620 watt-hour battery comes with a 5 amp charger, which will provide a full charge in about 6 to 7 hours. The bike ships with a locked top speed of 20 miles per hour. You unlock this by pressing and holding the down button or minus button for about 5 seconds. At this point, 10 will flash on the screen. And then the top speeds are unlocked, reaching around 22, 34, and 47 miles per hour in the 3 modes. By digging into the advanced settings, you can change those 3 modes to either 5 or 9 modes. And you can also choose to have the bike start up in a 0 power mode, and it doesn't have it until you select a pedal assist level. The hydraulic brakes include a 220mm front rotor and a 180mm rear rotor. These brakes use DOT fluid and are set up the reverse of a bicycle, with the rear brake on the left side and the front brake on the right with the throttle. The IN10 Pro also comes with a front headlight, a rear light with brake indicator, fenders, and a single-sided kickstand. But how does this bike feel when you hit the dirt? The IN10 Pro looks, feels, and it even sounds like a motorbike. Or almost sounds like a motorbike. The chain runs over a rubber roller and slider just like a real moto. And it makes this whirring noise that you're hearing that builds with your speed. It's pretty noisy, but it's not necessarily a bad sound. And when you're riding at speed, it gets kind of lost in your high-speed riding behind you. I found level 1 to be fairly light and controlled, and level 3 on the other hand is quite torquey and aggressive. It sets you back in the seat, and it can lift the front tire if you want to. I've hit 20 miles per hour from a dead stop in 3.5 seconds. and my GPS has said that I've reached a max speed of 47.9 miles per hour. So that's just shy of Yozma's 50 mile per hour claim, and maybe a lighter rider would be able to get up there easier. In general, during my rides, my GPS has displayed about 1 or 2 miles per hour slower than what the display shows. The bike feels very planted and stable, riding in the 30s. I found that when I pushed above the 40s, sometimes the front end would start to wander and bob a little bit. But climbing is where the IN10 Pro really shines. It posted the fastest time in our gradual hill climb, averaging over 37 miles per hour. And that puts it 1 second ahead of the closest competitor, which was the dual motor Iahora Romeo 2 Ultra. On the steep climb, it was just 1 second behind the Iahora, and that bike is nearly twice the price and runs 2 motors. Truly the only place where the motor has struggled for me is in deep sand and steep hills like you see behind me. But honestly, this is full-size e-moto territory. Not really meant for this little pit bike with a 200-pound full-size rider. I put the IN10 Pro through our normal brake test, stopping from 20 miles per hour in 15.5 feet, which is a great result. Now, most people are probably going to be riding this bike a little faster than 20 miles per hour though. And in general, throughout all my testing, I felt that the brakes were well suited to the bike. I never felt I had a problem slowing down, and I didn't experience any brake fade even after repeated high-speed stops. I also felt like the brakes gave me good modulation, and I could get the amount of power that I needed when I was descending a hill. As usual, I performed a range test at the max power output, which is pedal assist level 3 with the speed unlocked. During the test, I was doing lots of high-speed acceleration, starting and stopping, and riding in diverse off-road terrain with lots of hill climbing and chances to really test the bike out. And even riding flat out like that, the bike still managed to go 28.08 miles, with 1,472 feet of elevation climb at an average speed of 18.1 miles per hour. Now, Yozma does claim up to 60 miles. So being able to get 28 miles using max power with a 200-pound rider means if you were riding with lighter throttle or a lighter rider, you could probably get much closer to that total 60-mile limit that Yozma states. But I didn't personally test a low enough assist level to get that far. The only other place that I felt the bike is kind of lacking is on rough, rocky trails, where the suspension kind of clunks and is a little bit loud for me at 200 pounds. When I had another lighter rider at around 140 pounds ride the bike, they had a much better time and found that the bike felt better suited to them. The other annoying thing that I found that my foot overlapped on the kickstand on the left side of the bike. But I am wearing a size 13 shoe, so again, a smaller foot would probably have a better fit here. Now, needless to say, none of this stopped me from riding anywhere I wanted on the bike during my test period. And I really had a great time riding this bike off-road in some demanding terrain, and it really did a great job. I do feel like the bike is better suited to a smaller rider than myself. I also can't really speak about the durability of this bike after my short test period, but I've put almost 150 miles on this thing already, and so far, I haven't had any issues. So is the Yozma IN10 Pro really worth it? If you take it as the entry-level pit bike that it is, totally. Just don't expect it to compete with larger and more capable dirt bikes. And also be aware that its low price point does increase the risk that you're going to run into some quality control related issues. To add to that, Yozma is also a relatively new brand, so we don't have a lot of long-term data on reliability and customer service. Having said that, with my 200 pounds on board, this bike quickly accelerated up to 47.9 miles per hour at its highest speed. It climbed faster than any other bike that I've recorded and offered impressive braking performance, all for $1849 US. Unless you're planning on using this to mess around, I wouldn't recommend it to another adult of my size. But if you're a younger or smaller rider that's looking for a relatively gentle starter bike to get you going before you move on to a larger, more capable dirt bike, then the Yozma IN10 Pro really does deliver good value for money. What do you think about the Yozma IN10 Pro? Let me know down in the comments. And if you've ridden any of Yozma's bikes, I'd love to hear about your experience. Plus, if you're still looking for your next bike, check out bikeride.com. We've got hundreds of bike reviews, plus our curated best bike lists to help you narrow down the search. You can check out ride events near you, work on your repair skills with our repair guides, and chat with other cyclists in our forums. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next review.